맛보기엔 고풍스러운 다운타운 LA의 한 호텔.
It is one of the most beautifully constructed hotels of its type to be found anywhere.
Bad things keep happening there, over and over and over and over again. Why? That just continues to call to us.
그러나 이곳을 표현하는 단어는 모두
suicides, overdoses, murders.
끔찍한 것뿐.
Is there a room here that like maybe somebody hasn't died in? For some of our guests, there's some despair going on.
부정적인 기운으로 가득한 이 공간.
Tourists probably don't realize this, but Cecil Hotel is an alternative to apartment living for people who don't have a deposit, can't pass a background check.
이곳에는
You know, bad things just kept happening. We consistently had people pass away.
The Hotel Cecil has always had a dark persona.
정말 불행을 부르는 힘이 있는 걸까요?
It's always been a hotbed for death.
(2012년) 겨울.
I want to get away. Travel.
갓 21살이 된 엘리사 램은 첫 혼자만의 여행에 대한 기대에 젖어 있었습니다.
The West Coast Tour. Have arrived in La La Land.
그리고 2013년 캘리포니아 서부를 여행하던 중 실종되었지요.
January 31st was the last time her family in Canada had heard from her.
It is possible that Ms. Lam is either hurt or in danger.
매일 안부를 전하던 딸의 연락이 끊어지자 부모님은 실종 신고를 넣었는데요.
So there was probably about 18 detectives from Robbery Homicide Division that responded
to figure out where she was last seen, last known to have been. And they had learned that it was the hotel where she was staying.
경찰은 그녀가 마지막 묵었던 숙소에서 사라졌다는 것을 알아냅니다.
A hotel with a notorious past is the site of another bizarre case.
LA 시내에 위치한 세실 호텔. 엘리사가 사라지기 전부터 악명을 떨치던 곳이었습니다.
You just never knew what was going to happen at any given day. I told detectives that she checked into our hotel on January 28th, 2013.
13년 1월 28일 저렴한 다인실에 체크인한 엘리사는
Elisa was supposed to check out on February 1st, which was also the day that she was reported missing.
체크아웃이 예정된 날 사라집니다.
Investigators discovered that her laptop had been left behind, her prescription medications, other items of value.
Her wallet, all of the clothes that she wore, all those things were left behind in the room.
대부분의 소지품이 남아 있었고 절도나 습격의 흔적도 없었지요.
We spoke to the employees that worked the late shift on the night of her disappearance, and they said that they had seen Elisa in an area that no guests were allowed in, so they actually asked her to leave, and she walked towards the bank of the elevators. But that was the last time that anybody saw her.
담당 형사 팀은 이 사건의 끝이 좋지 않을 거라는 직감을 받았지요.
I remember feeling instinctively that this does not feel like it's going to end well.
According to the police,
평소 텀블러에 일상을 기록했던 엘리사.
Tumblr was her platform of choice that she seemed to treat almost like a diary. It was almost like she'd left these digital breadcrumbs for them to follow.
경찰은 그 기록을 통해 그녀의 발자취를 따라갔습니다.
As a normal few days of being a tourist, she was clearly open to meeting and hanging out with strangers.
She was traveling to meet up with somebody.
Eventually, investigators found a bookstore she had visited on the day that she went missing.
실종 당일 낮까지도 LA 시내의 유명 서점에 들렀지만
So she went to a bookstore, she came back to the hotel and then vanished. Only there's no trace of her.
그 후 흔적도 없이 사라져버렸지요.
So it's been 5 days, 6 days now.
사건 접수 6일 후 LA 경찰은 수사를 공개로 전환하며 시민들의 제보를 받기 시작합니다.
The LAPD were very concerned, so they had a press conference with the family in an effort to try to get help from the public.
Seeking to get this photo out so we can find Elisa. We're continuing the investigation now, and we're looking for your help.
1924년 LA의 호황기, 시내 중심가에 건설된 세실 호텔.
1919, Los Angeles is the biggest boomtown anyone's ever seen. Everyone was pouring into Los Angeles. The downtown area was at the center of the explosion. The Hotel Cecil opens at the end of 1924.
고급은 아니었지만 도시로 몰려드는 폭발적 인구를 수용할 객실을 갖춘 대형 호텔이었습니다.
It has 700 rooms. 100,000 people a day coming in and out of that railway station. And the Hotel Cecil was happy to accommodate them. And then it all bursts.
하지만 불안과 함께 호텔을 찾는 발길은 끊겼고 큰 변화를 맞이합니다.
It was very hard on all of downtown. And so it becomes a hotel of older gentlemen who really want to spend as little money as possible to stay there as long as possible.
값싼 숙박비는 불황자와 빈민들을 불러들였고
When I had money, the Cecil, that was like the spot. Believe me, there was a lot of stuff going on in the Cecil.
약물과 매춘으로 얼룩졌지요.
Back in the day, that used to be a very scandalous hotel.
빛나는 태양의 도시 LA는 미국 내 노숙인이 가장 많은 지역 중 하나였고
We were walking and we saw a lot of homeless people, just rows and rows, and they're all outside on streets sleeping. And then we found out that this area around the hotel is called Skid Row.
스키드로는 그 정도가 가장 심한 곳이었습니다.
It's one of the poorest areas in the entire world, and it's existed for over 100 years.
관광객들은 쉽게 알 수 없는 사실이었죠.
Okay, let me just say that nobody was born on Skid Row. And it was pretty rough, but they got all the missions, shelters right here.
구호단체들이 자리 잡은 후 길 위의 사람들은 더욱 몰려들었고
And it's become a dumping ground. They are dropped off on Skid Row.
In the early 1970s, the city came out with this plan, the policy of containment.
시 주도의 봉쇄 정책까지 시작되며 스키드로는 범죄와 광기가 넘쳐흐르는 지역이 되었습니다.
Let's see if we can contain anything bad that's going on in the rest of the city and direct it to Skid Row.
But within this border of Skid Row, it's the Wild West. This is a space where people are allowed to just suffer as crime and violence.
그리고 세실호텔은 이 스키드로의 코앞에 위치했지요.
Anybody's vulnerable, especially if you're a naive girl from some other country.
If Elisa is out at night by herself, she could easily become a victim.
세실호텔은 손님들도 평범하지 않았습니다.
Tourists probably don't realize this, but Cecil Hotel is an alternative to apartment living for people who don't have a deposit, can't pass a background check.
약에 절어 있거나 흉악한 범죄자인 경우도 많았지요.
The person who's in the elevator with you might be an 85-year-old offender who can't live anywhere else. There were a lot of creepy people at the Cecil Hotel.
There were thousands of 911 calls.
이곳에는 늘 경찰이 들락거렸습니다.
We would get domestic violence type calls, fights would erupt, assaults, stabbings. It was hell on earth, basically.
Over at the hotel, the investigators became aware that there was security footage.
다행히 보안 카메라를 갖추고 있었던 호텔.
We find out that not all floors have video cameras, or the quality of the video itself was not that great.
모든 층에 있는 것도 아니었고 영상 품질도 좋지 않았지만
So now it's kind of the needle in a haystack of how we can identify her. We focused on the night of Elisa's disappearance.
경찰은 드디어 카메라에 잡힌 엘리사를 발견했는데
We see her on camera. But I remember talking to my partner and say, her behavior is unusual.
조금 이상해 보였던 그녀.
In reviewing all the footage,
영상을 판독하던 팀은 더 이상한 결론을 내놓습니다.
We never saw her leave.
그녀가 호텔을 떠난 적이 없다는 것이지요.
She never left the hotel. If she never left, then where could she be? Who could have either hurt Elisa or has her under their control?
실종 일주일째.
Since the detectives knew that there was no video footage of Elisa leaving the Cecil, investigators had to search throughout the entire hotel.
경찰은 객실이 700여 개에 달하는 호텔을 수색합니다.
In order to protect her, should she be in harm's way.
We get one shot at this. Let's do it right.
Closets y todo, baños y todo. Hasta que abrimos todito.
시신이 들어갈 수 있는 공간까지 전부 뒤졌죠.
They started asking questions like, when does your garbage go out? Oh my gosh, what, you think she left in a dumpster?
수색견이 투입되었지만
The dogs are led throughout the hotel The dog wasn't able to locate the scent from Elisa's room.
On the 5th floor.
엘리사의 흔적은 화재 비상구에서 끊겼습니다.
That's where the scent was lost. This is the big unanswered question. Where is she?
실종 수사에는 시간이 가장 중요했지만
The following morning, after the search, the LAPD went on TAC alert because a different investigation came into play.
이날 이후 수사 인력은 더 부족해집니다.
With a man who is targeting law enforcement officers, he will not stop the killing until he's dead.
다음날 경찰 출신 테러범의 무작위 살인이 예고되었기 때문이었죠.
So we went from about 18 detectives down to 4. And that changed the dynamics of our investigation.
They really don't have any other answers. So now you're hoping that the public can assist you.
실종 13일째 수사가 진전을 보이지 않자 경찰은 엘리사의 마지막 영상을 공개하기로 합니다.
We owe it to the family to find her. That's where the case starts to go askew.
The initial version of the video comes out on LAPD's website. It's a 4-minute video.
화면 속 엘리사는 기묘하게 움직였습니다.
She's swinging one arm up, bends over casually to look at the panel, and she's firing down the whole center row of buttons, and then moves to the corner of the elevator.
누군가를 찾거나 피하는 듯 굴었고,
and then she's retreating back and is tucked away into the corner.
She kept looking outside the door, looking around the corner to her right.
And she would go to the left, and then you wouldn't see her.
Why is the elevator not going anywhere?
그녀가 탄 이후로 멈춰버린 엘리베이터는 더욱 이상했는데.
You have to wonder, why are you hitting all these different floors like that?
Her hand movements are very strange and erratic.
You could see the body movements, twisting and turning.
한참이나 이상 행동을 보이던 엘리사는 얼마 후 사라졌지만.
But you're just looking at an empty elevator.
She's literally not in the video past about the 2:30 mark.
You know, one strange thing is that the whole time Elisa's in there, the door never shuts, and now it shuts very quickly. The door opens back up.
빈 엘리베이터는 그 뒤에도 한참이나 문을 여닫기를 반복했습니다.
Like, is there a missing clue in here that I'm not seeing? The police unwittingly, turned it into a mystery. People were just dying to solve it.
이 소름끼치는 영상이 공개된 후 엘리사의 실종에 엄청난 관심이 쏟아졌죠.
And I was drawn in by the story.
Now the LAPD is asking for your help and fearing for the worst.
The door closes, and she's never seen again.
이 영상은 2,500만 이상의 조회수를 올리며 전 세계에 퍼져나갑니다.
The video just spread like wildfire. In the web sleuth community, it created this feeding frenzy.
What are we missing?
Where did she go?
웹사이트에서 활동하는 민간인 탐정들도 사건 해결을 위해 머리를 맞댑니다.
The thing I noticed most was a lot of people were talking about the footprint that Elisa left digitally, especially when it comes to her social media.
그들이 정보를 수집하는 곳은 주로 엘리사의 SNS였죠.
So I started reading through a lot of her Tumblr posts, and I was just trying to understand who she was as a person. You can see that she was really kind of posting a lot of artsy stuff.
Browsing through her social media, something else stands out.
엘리사는 양극성 장애와 우울증을 앓고 있었습니다.
Depression sucks.
But she was seeking treatment to help herself feel better.
Finally found the antidepressant that has made some difference.
오랜 약물 치료도 받고 있었는데요.
It just blew up in the media because her behavior on the elevator was unusual.
She appears to be stable on her feet. It doesn't appear that she's drunk.
엘리베이터에서의 비정상적인 행동도 어떤 약물 때문일 가능성이 있었죠.
You do have to consider that she could be on LSD or something mind-altering, because this particular area was a place that drugs are rampant. So we've got to figure out if she had been having a drug-induced experience. So investigators returned to the Cecil Hotel.
실제로 다인실에 묵었지만 다른 손님들의 항의로 방을 옮겼던 엘리사.
Eventually, these girls began to complain about her behavior, and so that prompted the hotel to move her into a private room by herself.
세실 호텔에서의 그녀의 정신 상태는 불안정했습니다.
We all felt that now we're looking for somebody in a state of mind that could render her more vulnerable to someone taking advantage of her.
She seems like she's communicating with someone, but she's alone. Why is she acting this way?
약물 때문일까요? 아니면 호텔에서 만난 어떤 존재 때문일까요?
What would she be looking at?
Is someone keeping the elevator here?
영상을 본 사람들은 엘리베이터 밖에 누군가가 있었다고 추측했습니다.
At one point it looks like she's almost panicking.
It is blurry a little bit, but some people say that you could see a shoe, something that Elisa was not wearing.
Had she met someone in LA while she was there?
전에도 종종 인터넷을 통해 사람을 만났던 기록이 있었기에 충분히 가능한 부분이었지요.
Meetup applications now accepted.
It's not inconceivable to think that she met a guy that she liked and maybe a date went bad.
I'm going out tonight. I really hope no creeper comes near me. Show the slightest inclination and they hound you.
스키드로의 호텔들은 저렴한 값에 세입자를 받아야 하는 법적 의무가 있었습니다.
They're not paying a whole lot of money. So the new ownership wanted the tenants evicted from the hotel, and that's when we got a stop work order. Only some of the rooms could be rented as a hotel, and all the other rooms had to still remain monthly rentals for our tenants. I mean, there were so many shady residents there. You know, bad things just kept happening.
그 때문인지 세실 호텔에는 죽음이 끊이질 않았는데요.
It's always been a hotbed for death. So 1931, you have W.K. Norton, the earliest reported suicide.
특히 고층에서는 거의 매일 사고가 일어났습니다.
I would never go no farther than the 6th floor. Usually the higher floors of the Cecil, people used to get killed up in there. They would rob them, beat them up, and throw them out the window.
The Cecil was a place where serial killers, let their hair down.
유명 범죄자도 여러 배출했던 이곳.
Was the figure who stayed upstairs on the 14th floor?
악명 높은 연쇄살인마 나이트 스토커 리처드 라미레스도 이곳 출신이었지요.
Attacking single women, elderly couples, children.
Nobody knows where this individual may strike next.
And then after committing some of the most brutal murders that happened in Southern California ever, he would come back to the Cecil.
그는 검거될 때까지 세실 호텔에 거주했습니다.
And that's cool, and no one's got a problem with that.
Richard Ramirez arrested today after being held by an angry crowd.
The Richard Ramirez presence at the Cecil tells you a lot about what kind of place it was.
I just feel like the Cecil Hotel has really suffered from, a bad reputation.
자연히 곤두박질 쳤던 세실 호텔의 평판.
One of the reviews once was like, the Cecil Hotel is a place where dreams go to die. That was when we invented Stay on Main.
호텔 측은 Stay on Main이라는 브랜드를 만들어 여행객과 기존 세입자를 분리했습니다.
The Stay on Main Hotel would be a youth hostel for the modern traveler. And the Cecil would be for our tenants and other guests. The Cecil Hotel and Stay on Main, they were totally different. So that's how it was divided.
새로운 손님들은 완전히 분리된 두 사업장에 만족했지요.
The young travelers really started staying at the hotel. We started to get positive reviews.
엘리사가 선택했던 것도 이 새로운 간판이었을 겁니다.
When Elisa Lam looked on the internet for an affordable, cool place to stay downtown, she ended up in a place called Stay on Main. And Cecil called to her to come inside.
그러나 두 숙박업소가 공유하는 단 하나.
The common elevators. They're accessible to anybody.
So if you're staying at the Stay on Main, you would have to sometimes interact with someone that's completely bugging out, or someone that just can't have an insane asylum or a jail or prison.
It seemed like everybody took interest in the Elisa Lam case.
엘리베이터 영상을 분석하던 사람들은 흥미로운 점을 발견합니다.
One of the biggest pieces of evidence that web sleuths spotted in this video was the video itself.
The timestamp is so unclear.
공개된 영상이 원본이 아니었다는 점이었죠.
Like it's been intentionally knocked out.
Another thing which made people incredibly suspicious. If you look at when her hands are moving, you can see that they're moving, very slowly.
느리게 편집된 영상은 엘리사의 행동을 더욱 기괴하게 보이도록 만들었고.
They determine the video has essentially been slowed down 33 to 35%.
It was definitely tampered with. I think cut in places.
You'll see the elevator door jump about 6 inches and then all of a sudden keeps closing.
훼손된 타임코드를 분석한 사람들은 1분 정도의 분량이 삭제되었다는 것까지 알아냅니다.
They notice 53 seconds just completely disappeared.
What was on that missing footage?
Some people think that it was edited to remove someone from the video.
Who else could manipulate the camera to have a missing minute in it?
웹 탐정들은 누군가 뭔가를 은폐하기 위해 영상을 훼손했다는 결론을 내립니다.
Something's weird here. Is there some type of cover-up within the Cecil Hotel?
하지만 호텔 측은 이를 부인했지요.
You know, we gave it all. There was no way that could have been edited by somebody at the hotel.
엘리사 실종 19일차.
We didn't know about the reputation of the hotel. About 5 days into the holiday, things got worse from that point on, really. And the water was quite discolored.
객실의 수압이 낮아졌고 수돗물의 색과 향이 이상하다는 컴플레인이 들어옵니다.
We were brushing our teeth using that water, but it did have a funny taste to it. We complained and moved to a different room, 2 floors up. The water pressure never got better.
담당 직원은 곧장 호텔 옥상의 물탱크를 확인했는데요.
En el techo hay 4 tanques. El principal tanque es donde el agua empieza a circular, ¿va? Por eso fui a ver. Encima del tanque tenía una puerta. Y yo cuando hice a ver, ahí cuando...
엘리사는 그곳에 있었습니다.
Flotó arriba ella, como un fantasma.
Next thing I know, it's a mob scene.
물탱크의 입구는 닫혀 있었고
The tank hatch was closed. When they peered inside, they saw that Elisa Lam was floating face up and naked.
We had no idea how long Elisa had been in the tank.
옥상은 이미 여러 번 수색이 진행됐던 곳이었죠.
Okay, how and when did she end up here? We checked the roof. We felt confident that she wasn't there.
I could not believe it.
It was just mind-blowing.
투숙객과 세입자들은 이 기이한 사건에 큰 충격에 빠집니다.
It tasted horrible. It had very funny, sweety, disgusting taste.
And I think it traumatized me for life now.
경찰은 이번 사건을 사고로 결론 내렸습니다.
The LAPD is not calling this a homicide right now. Investigators are still calling this a suspicious death. They have not named any suspects or made any arrests.
Why did it have to happen this way?
I have to investigate everything.
Whenever you have a situation like this, we investigate the case as a homicide until it's not.
타살로 추정할 어떤 증거도 나오지 않았지만
Investigators also had to fingerprint anywhere that was potentially touched by an assailant. But ultimately, nothing was revealed that would have pointed towards a potential suspect.
In that there was nothing to support that a crime of violence occurred.
그녀가 어쩌다 물탱크에서 죽음을 맞이했는지는 여전히 의문이었는데요.
How did she end up here? In a water tank on the roof of the Cecil Hotel. Do we have a crime here? What actually happened?
The interest in the hotel was just absolutely through the roof.
사건 이후 세실 호텔에 대한 관심이 폭증합니다.
So today we're driving to the Cecil Hotel.
Elisa Lam's death is a tragedy, but for people on the internet, this is really exciting stuff.
그녀의 비극을 해결하겠다는 웹 탐정들이 몰려오며 호텔 측은 크게 곤란해졌지요.
Entering the Cecil Hotel. So this is the floor she was staying.
This is the floor she stayed on.
Here's the room everybody's interested in.
Are you filming?
No, I'm not filming.
Wait, where's the elevator?
엘리베이터는 가장 핫한 공간이었습니다.
Just being in there took my breath away.
The big mystery in this case is why is the elevator staying open?
실제로 엘리베이터를 본 사람들은 닫히지 않던 문의 비밀을 찾아내고야만 합니다.
If you look at it very closely, at the bottom of that center row that Elisa pressed on is a button called door hold.
초자연적 현상이 아닌 정상 작동이라는 뜻이었지요.
We learned that when you press that button, the elevator doors stay open for 2 minutes.
Okay, we gotta be quiet.
동선까지 분석하던 그들.
We know that Elisa was staying on 5.
In the video, you can see she clearly presses this row buttons.
But as soon as she takes it off, it goes out. It's because she's already on that floor.
Through this, we learned that the elevator video was on the 14th floor, which is just one floor below the roof.
14층에서 내린 엘리사가 비상계단을 통해 옥상으로 갔을 거라고 추측합니다.
Here's the stairs to the rooftop.
Up there, you've got a doorway that supposedly needs a key to deactivate the alarm.
Entry into room area prohibited.
I believe that she took the exterior fire escape, but If you open the door, an alarm starts going off at the front desk in the lobby. So do you think that we would just have, an alarm going off when we're running a business?
엘리사가 세상을 떠났을 옥상.
At one point when I was on the rooftop, in the same area as where Elisa may have had her last steps. What it must have been like for Elisa.
도시의 소음으로 가득해 누구의 도움도 받기 어려운 공간이었습니다.
Was the idea that if someone screamed, would anybody hear them?
Who within the hotel could be a potential suspect?
보안 카메라 영상을 돌려보던 경찰은 엘리사가 두 남성과 만나는 장면을 발견합니다.
This is the only interaction caught on camera between Elisa and somebody else.
Elisa takes control of the box, which was an interesting development because did she know these people?
Investigators went back to her personal belongings.
소지품 속에서 그들에게 받은 박스도 발견됐지만
The box led us to the last bookstore in downtown Los Angeles.
내용물은 생전 마지막으로 방문했던 서점에서 구매한 책이었습니다.
She was talking about what book she was getting and whether or not what she was getting would be too heavy for her to carry around as she traveled or take home with her.
And so these two individuals delivered this box to the hotel.
그렇다면 엘리사는 어쩌다 왜 물탱크에 들어갔을까요?
We have to ask the question, how would she have even gotten in there?
She could have lifted the lid to get into it.
I feel like you'd have to be on something.
If she was on a party drug, or having a bad LSD trip.
I don't abuse any drugs. I don't drink alcohol. But at the same time, if I wasn't so uptight, I would have had an easier time dealing with stupid people.
엘리사는 파티나 약물에 관심이 없는 사람이었지만
Elisa's blogs, we also know that she had her struggles with depression.
오랜 지병인 정신질환 때문에 큰 스트레스를 받고 있었던 점에서 얼마든지 변할 수 있었지요.
I don't want to live like this.
She was in a vulnerable position, and some people are thinking that it was suicide.
그러나 발견 당시 9kg에 달하는 물탱크의 뚜껑은 닫혀 있었고
My understanding is that lid was closed when our officers went up there.
So that raises a very big question. How does the lid get closed?
3m에 달하는 내부에는 사다리도 없었는데요.
How was she able to get this metal hatch back into position and closed on top of there? So that led to people concluding there had to be someone else involved.
사다리라고 보기 어려운 현장의 모습은 이 죽음에 삼자가 있다고 몰아갔지요.
I believe that she was killed on the rooftop and then she was placed into the tank afterwards.
My instinct was that she was murdered.
그도 그럴 것이 스키드로는 하루에도 몇 번씩 여성들이 사라지는 곳이었습니다.
In the Skid Row area, females are the #1 victims.
Women go missing on Skid Row nearly every day. No one really knows where they go. They just disappear.
엘리사의 타살 여부를 가리기 위해 부검이 진행됩니다.
When I first examined the body, she was in a state of moderate decomposition. I looked for signs of injuries.
어떤 폭행의 흔적도
There's no gunshot wounds or stab wounds or evidence that she was strangled.
So there was no indication whatsoever that there was a sexual assault issue.
익사의 흔적도 보이지 않았죠.
Sometimes when a person drowns, you may see foam in the airways. The lungs can be very congested and filled with fluids. I didn't identify those findings. It was a very suspicious death. At the end of the autopsy, we really don't know why she was found in a tank.
아무것도 밝힐 수 없었던 부검 결과는 공개되지 않았습니다.
I just need to know what happened.
No autopsy released to the public?
I want to know what the delay is.
And I wonder why they haven't released it. What are they hiding?
웹 탐정들은 LA 경찰이 호텔과 결탁해 엘리사의 죽음을 은폐한다며 비난했죠.
I think that there was a big cover-up by the LAPD. The LAPD, they might have been given some money to shut up. Who knows?
A lot of people thought if the cops are hiding something, maybe we can help figure out what happened to her.
그러다 검은 물밑에서라는 영화까지 끌어올려집니다.
I did some research and found similarities between Elisa Lam and the movie Dark Water.
엘리사의 실종 전 제작되었지만 이 사건과 비슷한 내용의 공포 영화였죠.
It's a horror movie about a mother and daughter who move into this dilapidated apartment building, much like the Cecil Hotel. If you reduce the plot of Dark Water down to its basic elements, it's almost the story of Elisa Lam.
영화를 모방한 범죄라는 이야기가 나오기 딱이었습니다.
Is this an incredibly elaborate, staged murder inspired by a movie? Or is it just a crazy coincidence?
시신이 발견되고 며칠 후 스키드로에 있는 결핵이 번집니다.
This outbreak of tuberculosis happened only a matter of days after her body was found in the water tank.
The fact that she's named the same as the tuberculosis test, it just kind of itches in my brain a little bit and makes me wonder if there's any connection.
기묘하게도 엘리사는 결핵과 여러 가지 연관성을 가지고 있었고
It's just, what a coincidence.
No joke, spelled the same way in everything.
On top of that, the University of British Columbia, which is where Elisa took classes, has a fairly well-known tuberculosis research center.
그녀가 노숙인 청소를 위한 정부의 생화학 무기였다는 별 희한한 음모론까지 나옵니다.
Some people theorize that Elisa Lam is effectively a biological weapon.
Sent to LA as part of a campaign to infect the homeless population in order to reduce their numbers.
How do you explain that? I don't know.
이 기막힌 우연들은 세실 호텔에 악령이 있다는 미신까지 불러냈지요.
The Cecil Hotel is known for multiple suicides, multiple homicides. It really makes people wonder, is there something evil that's going on here?
Does Elisa's death have something to do with the Cecil Hotel's dark past or the Cecil Hotel being haunted?
She was possessed, and an evil spirit told her to kill herself.
아니면 그냥 그런 재미있는 이야기를 기대했던 걸지도 모르죠.
I think that we're hoping for a ghost. I think we're hoping for a monster from the depths that just came in and captured her and threw her in a tank because it's what we've come to expect.
Maybe we will find something.
여전히 가상의 범인을 찾아 헤매던 사람들.
If it's a murder, then you need a murderer. Essentially a virtual manhunt. Then someone out there, and I don't know who, stumbled on the footage of this musician who called himself Morbid.
죽음에 심취한 데스메탈 뮤지션 모비드를 발견합니다.
I'm here in the Cecil Hotel downtown LA.
세실 호텔에도 묵었던 그는 사건 며칠 후 기괴한 영상을 업로드했는데
The timing seemed suspicious.
So finally, people started going and finding his other songs.
I will let your tender remains rest in the deep cold ocean.
Elisa Lam was Chinese, and the lyrics talk about a girl dying in water.
A lot of people thought, is this some type of calling card from a murderer type situation?
People truly believe this guy's a killer.
이 영상은 그를 순식간에 엘리사 사건의 범인으로 몰아갑니다.
This guy Morbid must have killed Elisa Lam.
Everyone suspects him. We need to find him.
They discover that his real name is Pablo Vergara.
You killed Elisa Lam, didn't you?
한참 후에야 상황을 파악한 그는 영상으로 자신의 부고를 호소했죠.
I wanted to inform you I am innocent.
I was shocked, confused, because prior to that, I had never heard about Elisa Lam before. I was there in February 2012 for 3 days.
그가 호텔에 묵었던 것은 사건이 있기 1년 전이었고 여러 증거가 있었지만
It was 1 year prior to when Elisa Lam checked in. I was in Mexico working on my album. I have contracts from the recording studio. The web sleuths, they saw me the way I look, and that's what triggered them.
살해범으로 몰린 모비드는 세계인의 위협을 받게 됩니다.
Being truthful doesn't matter to them. Every day, every week, there was no escape.
이 일로 그는 음악을 접었지요.
I got in a very bad place. I did try to take my life and just wake up in a psychiatric hospital.
웹 탐정들은 점점 사건의 본질에서 멀어지고 있었습니다.
I have to live with it for the rest of my life. It's going to be there for the rest of my life.
But all I can say is that he's not involved. I can understand how the web sleuths were trying to do the right things for the right reasons, just like we are. You get addicted to it.
부검 이후 여러 검사가 추가로 진행되었는데요.
Eventually, I received the toxicology results, but I didn't identify any evidence that she was consuming alcohol or abusing any type of illicit drug.
처방된 약 외에 어떤 것도 검출되지 않았습니다.
The only drugs actually identified were her prescription medications for her bipolar disorder that she should have been on. However, the levels of the medications were very low.
오히려 너무 적었지요.
Than what should have been in there for that fill date of those prescriptions. It also suggests that she was undertaking her medications. What's really going on there?
경찰은 다시 한번 엘리사의 SNS에서 답을 찾았습니다.
Elisa was a very introspective, bright person.
Can I just inhabit someone else's brain? I just wish someone around me could understand.
조울증을 앓고 있었던 엘리사는 항상 생각이 많았고
Bipolar disorder is still very stigmatizing for most people, and most people don't really understand it. They have depression, and they also have mania.
특히 매일 약을 먹는 것에 스트레스가 심했는데요.
In some of her Tumblr posts, Elisa was struggling with the idea of her mental illness and her medications having to be on so many antidepressants, a mood stabilizer, and an atypical antipsychotic.
I need a place to go and find my motivation.
미국 여행 또한 그 스트레스를 벗어나 보통 사람이 되려는 마음에서 시작되었지요.
Bursting with self-esteem and confidence. Have arrived in La La Land.
미서부를 여행하던 그녀는 LA에 도착한 뒤 약을 끊었고
It's hard to know what happened, but based on the toxicology report, as the trip was unfolding, I think Elisa stopped taking her medications. The risks for a mood episode goes way up.
이상 증세를 보이기 시작했습니다.
And demands that that letter be given to the host of this show, which obviously raises security concerns. Back at the Cecil, Elisa had been sharing a room at the hotel with a couple other girls.
세실 호텔에 도착한 뒤 더욱 심해졌던 증상.
She was leaving these notes on other guests' beds. She was writing, go away, go home, get out. She wouldn't open the door.
늘 정신질환자가 넘쳐났던 세실 호텔이었기에 그녀는 적절한 보살핌을 받지 못했습니다.
Move where she says that I'm crazy, but so is LA. At the time, we didn't really look too much into it. I mean, this is the Cecil Hotel.
타살에 무게를 두고 조사했지만
And so now our investigation focused on figuring out exactly how she ended up in the tank.
여전히 성인 여성을 상처 없이 살해하고 물탱크에 넣을 방법은 찾아낼 수 없었습니다.
When you get onto the rooftop, to get to the tank itself, you would actually have to walk on pipes and squeeze in between the tanks to get to the one that she was in. And then you'd have to carry a body up the ladder and then place the body into the hole at the top of the tank.
Even though she was light, to carry a body up a steep ladder without damaging the body, it's not possible.
조사가 진행될수록 타살이 아니라는 증거만 늘어갔죠.
When the body was found, it's reported that she is found floating face up. That's a unique finding. It could suggest foul play. But in looking at the tanks as water's being used, the water level in there would fluctuate. And in review of the scene, we did not find anything suspicious for any criminal reason why she's dead.
마침내 엘리사의 부검 결과가 공개됩니다.
The death of 21-year-old Canadian tourist Elisa Lam has been ruled an accident due to drowning.
최종 사인은 익사. 대중은 여전히 경찰의 수사 결과에 의문을 표했습니다.
They found it was an accident. Is it though? And I completely disagree with the coroner.
If it wasn't some type of sexual assault,
why would she get naked? She could have been led to the rooftop by gunpoint, forced into the water tank and left to die.
It seems like there's inconsistencies in the autopsy.
수정된 부검 자료를 보고 외압을 의심했죠.
There's a section on the autopsy report where it is the manner of death. It looks like undetermined was originally marked, but then it was X'd out and accident was marked.
Why was it changed?
어쩌면 그럴 수도 있었지만
Maybe that was LAPD pulling some strings in their coroner's department, calling it an accident to hide the truth.
They just want to silence it because they have something to hide.
In the early stages of the investigation, when talking to the family, it wasn't divulged how serious her mental health was.
엘리사가 이전에도 약을 걸을 때마다 상태가 급격히 나빠졌다는 가족의 증언이 나옵니다.
According to her family, she would become delusional. In fact, it had been so bad that on at least one occasion she had to be hospitalized.
전문가도 실종 전 그녀의 행동이 전형적인 정신병적 증상이라고 판단했지요.
That to me is completely consistent with somebody who's in the middle of a psychotic episode. In that elevator video, her behavior is completely consistent with somebody who is having delusions of paranoia and delusions of persecution.
머릿속 누군가에게 쫓겼고
Elisa Lam was in a state of desperation, running from something that she is seeing in her mind.
She's running around this hotel, trying to save her own life.
It would make perfect sense that she saw the water tank as her place to hide, opened the hatch, and jumped into the water tank.
상상 속 위협을 피해 숨어들었던 물속에서 사망하게 되었던 것.
If the water's being used and going down, it would make it more difficult to reach the top. She was undressing while she was in there because she may have been trying to stay afloat and lighten the load a little bit. But she ultimately succumbed to drowning.
경찰은 모든 음모론을 부정하며 사건을 종결합니다.
I feel confident in my decision to rule this as a drowning and as an accident, with bipolar as a significant contributing condition.
Now, some people still feel that there's some type of conspiracy to cut out portions of the video to protect the identity of the killer. And there was nothing suspicious about the actual original hard drive video, which we have in our custody.
About how there may have been some oversight by the LAPD because they didn't search the tanks at that time.
She was in there. Just missed her. Sucks.
사건 종결 후 새로운 정보가 공개됩니다.
So then, how could Elisa have closed the lid on herself? This completely changes the scope of possibilities for how she died.
수사 과정에서 혼선이 있었던 거지요.
That a hotel employee climbed up the ladder, the hatch was open, but that's not what was reported in the media.
This was a communication breakdown. It's an honest mistake.
음모론은 없었지만 호텔 측이 빠르게 대응했다면 일어나지 않았을 사고였습니다.
Once she began exhibiting behavior that was abnormal, I think there was an obligation for responsible parties to recognize that this person who was in their care was not in her right mind and needed some help.
이곳이 세실 호텔이었기에 일어난 불행이었죠.
Her behavior was bizarre, but not enough to be, calling the officials in. A lot of times, when you do call the police, they don't even answer. There's so much going on in this area. What happened to Elisa Lam is horrendous, but it isn't because of the hotel.
And I realized that ultimately
도시괴담에 매달리던 웹 탐정들은
I think it's pretty clear what really happened to her.
I think that people hope that there was a killer because the reality of it is much sadder.
I rewatched all my videos before coming here to do this, and I could see how conspiracy-minded I was.
뒤늦게 과몰입을 인정하며 사건에서 물러났습니다.
But when you are too deep into anything, you do lose your perspective. I think that people that cross that line without any facts or evidence, and that's when you lose control. And that's when you do things that can hurt people.
All of the background information that's used to rule this as an accident is not necessarily made available to the public. You don't have all of the facts.
2017년에 새해 도시괴담 속 호텔은 문을 닫습니다.
The hotel was sold to a group in New York.
At this point, a determination has been made that half the building is going to be low-income housing and that half the building is going to be a luxury hotel.
According to reports, the new owner wants to have a bar area put up on the roof and a waiting pool.
세실 호텔은 더 이상 존재하지 않죠.
Today, what we see is this reimagining of downtown Los Angeles.
죽음을 부르는 유령 호텔의 이야기는 스키드로의 슬픈 얼굴과 함께 끝이 납니다.
Those individuals deserve a better space than what we've created for them. Because in this space, mental health episodes have become common. And how many stories, just like Elisa Lam's, have we missed?
크라임씬 세실호텔 실종 사건은 LA 지역에서 일어났던 엘리사 램 실종 사건을 다룬 4부작 다큐멘터리입니다. 초반에는 음침한 사건이 가득한 세실호텔의 이야기와 어딘가 오싹한 기분을 자아내는 실종 사건에 집중하며 시선을 끌고, 후반에는 스키드로 지역의 슬픈 뒷이야기를 조명하며 생각할 거리를 던져주는 스토리텔링이 상당히 훌륭한 작품이었습니다. 공포서를 좋아하시는 분들에게도 사회 문제에 관심 많은 분들에게도 만족스러운 감상이 될 것 같습니다. 그럼 저는 다음에 또 재밌는 콘텐츠 소개로 돌아오도록 하겠습니다. 이상 어바웃타임이었습니다.